My name is Chigozie from IWI Consulting Group. IWI Consulting Group is a Sage partner. IWI will do Sage X-Ray, Sage Intacct, and then Sage 300 as well as Sage CRM. Today, focus of this presentation will be on the functionality of Sage Intacct for fixed assets. And then we do have an agenda here, which will be guiding us in how we go by this. First, we'll be looking at introducing Sage Fixed Asset Management, and then look at things you need to do or before you set up that module. But first, you have to do a request through your account manager for this module. And once that module is provisioned, there are certain things you need to do before you go ahead to configure it, which includes creating document sequences, creating journals, which the system would use in processing asset transactions. And then you can then go ahead to configure Sage Intacct Fixed Assets, activate the asset dimensions such that you're able to use the fixed assets within various modules in transaction processing, which would also require integration between general ledger, AP, and purchasing. Sorry, I missed out my L in the general there, my bad. And then we'll look at how to create asset classes, which involves categorizing assets where you define common parameters that would drive items that fall within that category, such as GL codes for asset costs, accumulated depreciation, as well as depreciation expense, and then what the depreciation method and rates are, just at a simple level. From there, we'll then go out to look at how we can create asset records, and then we'll be looking at about 4 options. Manually creating it using the add button. Because we've integrated with AP and purchasing, how when you raise a purchase bill or a vendor invoice, it will trigger creating an asset record within the asset module, and then you go ahead to put it in service. And then considering that some of us don't have the asset module already running, we'll keep the record out of the system. If you decide to then implement, you could have as much as 200 assets, you wouldn't be creating those assets one after the other. We'll then use the import functionality to bring in those backlog of assets into the system, and then let the system take it up from there. After creating assets, the next thing you would do is typically upgrade or update it. If there's a new asset, you create it. Existing assets, at every end of the period, you run your depreciation. Accumulated depreciation is credited, depreciation expense is debited, and then the system keeps going. Your financials are updated automatically, and can always generate a report on your fixed asset. And then eventually, if there's any need where an asset needs to be done away with, you can also process disposal of that asset all within the system. So in a nutshell, we're looking at what they would typically call credit to grade for a typical asset in Sage Intacct, from acquisition to disposal. And then we'll also look at how we could capture, or how we can capture certain information that might be missing from the typical information that will come with the model. So I'll give you an example. If you wanted to be able to maintain insurance renewal for certain kind of assets, if you don't find an insurance field within the asset module, you can get ahead and create custom fields and then assign it, and then you can use that at the point where you create assets. So at this point, I'm going to delve into the solution to show you how it works. It's easy to use, quick to set up, but for any reason where you want us to be of service to you, you can always reach out to us, and we'll be glad to help. However, before going to the solution, I will have to go to the first item on my agenda, which is introducing Sage Fixed Assets Management. Okay, so this is documentation from Sage. You will see that at the point where this module, Sage does have a lot of fixed asset application, but in terms of when this was released, they had to update it, and then it came in 2024 release 2. And within this documentation, they are saying exactly what the solution is about, and telling you that you can stop using spreadsheets and other systems manually, and then have Sage Intacct run it automatically for you. Okay, so from here you can see key features. I'm not just going to bore you with this, but just like an overview, you can see key features of the application, and then I spoke about dimension earlier, and then how it relates into top and entity level supports. It does have multi-book depreciation, so you could have your gap depreciation and then other depreciation books that would have depreciation posted based on what is defined within the book. We believe that it's simple and self-implementation, but if you, like I said earlier, if you run into any kind of challenge, we're here to help and be of support to you. And then in terms of more details, we're looking at various depreciation methods that would come with the solution. But for the purpose of this presentation, we'll be sticking with straight line and basically full months. Then would also see how to integrate with AP and purchasing, how disposals are run, just like I explained earlier, and then also touch on reports. Now, having said this, I would delve into the solution proper. So this is me logged into the Sage instance. Just to let you know, you'll see that I have additional tab here. I do have some kind of approval set up, within Sage, and I didn't want to deactivate it for this, so I kind of opened these tabs just to make it easier to run through because I use this tab a lot in terms of presentations and demos, which I do. So looking at these, the other two items on my agenda before we go into configuring the system includes, setting up a document sequence, creating journals which transactions will be posted with. Document sequence simply means how you want to generate your asset codes. So if I go to applications, company, document sequences, I already have fixed asset configured within this instance, but I'm going to try as much as possible to show you what I've done and not just, run you through an existing system without going into the details. So as you can see, I do have a sequence already defined in here called FAS, and you can see that names fixed asset sequence, and this is what it's defined as. And just like the way Sage Intacct operates, they've subsequently updated how sequences are created such that you can enable the sequence to roll over in physical years, which means you can incorporate the physical year into the sequence number. So for example, I already have this sequence running. You see that it's currently at 34. It's currently at 33 and the next one is 34, but it still runs to 999 because it has 5 numeric strings. That gives me much in terms of space. But if I wanted to create a new asset fixed asset sequence, also figuring this in with the new functionality. This is how you would go about it. You would click on add, give it a name. Because I have FAS, it's supposed to be unique. Let me call this FAC, and then the description I could just call it my fixed assets sequence. Let me not, write it just to save some time. I'll leave it at numeric. I'll still give it a length of 5 and the maximum length of 999 because it's 5. And then the minute I include this, it's going to trigger to enable me at that, and I will state if I want to add it as a prefix or a suffix. In this case, I will say I want to add it as prefix. And because in 2025 it just picks that up, if I want to change the separator, I can do that. If I also want to, I can then specify what my fixed prefix is. I mean, that's also optional. Do I want the separator there as well? I could say yes. And then what is my primary sequence? It's 5 numbers, so it's this. And then based on that, I do have my sequence of 2025 would be 2025 to this. Now, what happens is that even if I don't exceed this sequence by the end of 2025, if I get to 2026, it's going to start all over again and switch, to this. So this is how we would create a document sequence for your fixed asset. The next thing would be looking at creating journals, which you will do from the general ledger. You go to journals. I already have a journal for fixed assets, which is this. It's just defining it. There's really not much you need to do here. If I needed to create, if it's within a new system, all I would do as well would be to say, click on my ad. Okay, come on. Okay, and then state what the symbol is. In this case, I will call it fixed asset code, just to tally with what I have in my sequence. I mean, this is just up to you. You could call it FE, you could call it FS. It all depends, and I can give it a description that suits me. Sorry, my spelling. And then just save this and it becomes part of what I have in my journals. Now once I've set up my sequence and my asset, the next thing I will do is go to company, go to admin, go to subscriptions, because at this point in time I would have requested for this module to be activated through my account manager to Sage. And once that module is activated, you come and you find it from company, subscriptions, under applications, not custom packages. So if I scroll down to, okay, okay, so it says fixed asset management. Already I have it active, it's running, but if not, it will show up like this, and you can just click on the button to trigger it, and then go ahead to click on, configure. Okay, let's let it open up. So in configuring, you will see that one of the first things it's asking is the document sequence. So at this point, you specify what the document sequence is, and then you have to create the journal posting rule, where you also specify what the fixed asset journal ID is. Remember, I showed you how to create FAC, but I'm using FAS here. And I'll just go ahead and click on edit. So we'll look at what we have here. Okay, so you see I have my fixed assets sequence here, which is looking at the various sequences. So if I had created FAC, I would have picked it, but because I used FAS within this particular instance, that's what I pick. And you will see here it's particularly Sage Intacct API integrations. Simply checking this is what I've done to say I can create draft asset records when I'm creating a bill or when I'm creating a vendor invoice from the purchasing transactions. And then you look at depreciation settings. From depreciation settings, I've enabled automatic posting. So what this means is at the end of every period, Sage is supposed to automatically post depreciation for all fixed assets that are currently in service, and then the system would go ahead and form part of my financial reporting. So in terms of disposal, it expects what you call gain and loss account, because if you dispose of an asset, it could be via sale, it could be maybe a lost asset. But in instances like that, journal entries will be passed, and then if it's a sale based on the cost, the accumulated depreciation and depreciation expense currently existing, you probably could have a gain or loss on that fixed asset, which would show up on your financials, eliminate the values in your balance sheet, as well as create a gain and loss in your income statement. And then it's still the same journal that will be used to process it. Now, in terms of because you're just acquiring a fixed asset, we know that you do have assets in existence before now. We just have to determine when is go live date, such that all assets before that date are treated, as historical assets, and the transactions do not impact your general ledger at the point being, especially because you have those numbers in your financials already, but you're just bringing in the asset record to kind of tie it up with the general ledger. Now, if I save this, you would also notice that I have the part where I do have the posting rules. So instead of, I'll look at what I have here and show you how to create so that it's more elaborate. So looking at the posting rule, I would say edit in this instance. Not like I would change it, but just to let you know. I've tried to be consistent with my ID. ensuring that everything I do in relation to fixed asset has FAS as the ID, what is the document sequence, what is the asset code, start with FAS, as well as the posting rule. So specify what the rule name is, what the journal is, and the convention. I want to be able to post my assets on full month basis and my useful life units broken down to months. This will enable me capture depreciation on a monthly basis, but if I say yes, then it would capture it on an annual basis. Looking at this as well, I've said I want to use salvage value. Salvage value is a situation where, based on internal policies, you could decide that, if I ever want to dispose an asset, disposal value should be 10% of the cost of that asset. So what it does is that it gives you the opportunity to be able to enter salvage value when creating the asset. And once you do that, depreciation will be calculated, factoring that salvage value into consideration. So for example, if you had an asset that's for $10,000 with the internal policy of 10% salvage value, which makes it 1,000, what it then means is that depreciation for that asset will be calculated with $9,000 as the actual amount available for depreciation. I didn't involve this, but if you wanted to involve some kind of tax calculation, this could cover the subsequent dates and all that. And then, I said edit. If I had said create, it's really not different from what you would have seen, and I would have done the specified, those information which are not too different from what this, would be. And then I've spoken about integration, disposal, and then go live date. And once I'm done, I will say that, and my fixed asset register is ready for use. So if I go to, I just go to home. So the next thing on our agenda would be to look at how we would activate asset dimensions in GL, AP, and purchasing. Because once you activate the application, you should be able to also use it in transaction processing because you may want to run reports based on assets that enables you to capture transactions at GL, AP, or purchasing level. So if I were to go to say general ledger and I go to configuration, having activated that asset module, I would see it listed under my dimensions, and then I would just, tick this, to enable it. And this is the same for purchase AP. I'll do AP first, go to setup, configuration. If you scroll down as well, you would see where you have your dimensions, and then you will see asset listed, and then you would activate it. Before now, you wouldn't see it unless you configure fixed assets. And then the same thing for purchasing, setup, configuration. I'm gonna leave this, I didn't want to change. And then scroll down and then you would see assets enabled. So within your system, because it's a fresh integration, what you need to do is just tick that, and then it becomes available when you're creating transactions. Okay. So the next thing will be to look at asset classes. Asset classes, like I tried to mention earlier, it enables you categorize or classify assets. You will see that we have asset groups here. It's slightly different from it's different from asset classification because asset classification will enable you define common parameters to assets that are related. I'll give you an example. So, for example, computer equipment. All computer equipment, irrespective of the number of computers you have within your organization, will typically update 3GL codes. That will be computer equipment account, accumulated depreciation computer equipment, and in certain cases, depreciation expense accounts for computer equipment. Although I've seen organizations where they don't break depreciation expense, they just post all depreciation to a single account, but it's all based on preferences. And then within asset classification, after defining this information, you have to specify what the depreciation method is and what the depreciation rate would be. So if I go into classifications that I've created, for example, you will see that I have computer equipment, software, furniture and fittings, motor vehicles, office equipment. Now, I mean, this is just what I created here. You could have more. I've seen organizations where they break them up, and you could want to see. I would say I don't have leasehold improvements here or land and building. So it's if it's something within the organization, all you have to do is create that particular uh, classification here. So for example, if I was to create this zone improvement, I could call it LI using what I the format I use for that. My ID is always two digits, and then I give it a proper name. This holds improvements, and then it's active. But then I need to have the GL code for leasehold improvement because I can't assign the GL code, for example, for land and building to this. And then if I go to assets, for example, you would see, oh, so I have a leasehold improvement account here. And completed depreciation, all I need to do is also type that. Do I have something? Leasehold accumulated depreciation. Okay, good. And then also for expense, okay, expense, and then my disposal account is always the same. So if I type in disposal, I hope I, oh, it's called gain or loss on disposal of fixed asset. So once I do this and I save it, it's going to ask me for additional information where I would specify what the depreciation rules are. So in this case, I would go ahead to say my posting rule is the same posting rule I'm using, fixed assets. The depreciation method is straight line. My useful life, I could say, I mean, there's always standards for this, but I'm going to use roughly 5 years. And because I've used months, I'm going to do 5 times 12, which is 60. So my useful life is 60 months. And then this is done. Okay. So my depreciation, my asset classification for leasehold improvement has been created with this and applied with the straight line method with 5 years useful life. And with this, I'm ready to go on to start setting up my asset records. So the first thing we're going to look at is how to create asset records using I'm going to come back to show you what asset groups look like and, kind of differentiate it from asset classification. But in terms of creating asset record, the first option we have is to create it directly from the fixed asset module. And then we'll look at how to create it using AP bills and purchasing transaction using vendor invoices, and then using the import template. So if I typically click on this, so I'm going to create a leasehold improvement asset. You will see that the ID doesn't show up because it will be generated using the document sequence I created for assets. So I will just call this head office. Sorry. Okay. It's my L. Sorry about that. And then, if I had the serial number, if I had a tag, especially for items like furniture and fittings, where you could have tags such as FF-2025-001, or some kind of information, you could provide that tag. If there's a quantity, if I, for example, bought 10 desks together, instead of creating 10 assets, I could create a single asset because I bought them the same day, which means that the depreciation start date would be the same, the acquisition date would be the same. I could just make the number 10 and then put the total number of the assets in terms of where do I have my asset cost. Here, my asset cost. So in this case, I'm going to take it as one asset, and I would say that this asset values, this improvement cost us say $20,000. And then I would say the salvage value for this internal policy is 5%, so it's $1,000. I don't have a parent asset, but what this means is that it enables you build an asset hierarchy where, for example, you're able to kind of componentize assets or, kind of group assets. So, for example, I could have a motor vehicle that I bought in 2023, and then in 2025, I had to do some repair where I had to change maybe like the engine, and the engine is worth a substantial amount. So I could create the engine, in 2025, and then have its depreciation run for 2025. But then I'm able to tie it to the motor vehicle which I, created. I install the engine on, and then I can subsequently see that hierarchy and tie them together. So in this case, I could use, I'm not going to use parent assets for this. I'm going to use same description for this, and then if I have additional notes, I can enter that. If I also have attachments, so for example, I could have pictures for maybe the motor vehicle, or maybe the project plan or the floor plan for this particular item, and then I can always navigate to wherever that asset is and then assign it to this transaction. Now, at this point, this is where you define what your asset classification is. And this helps in terms of, limiting errors, because I've seen instances where people could pick wrong QR codes, or, you could pick account accumulated depreciation as the asset cost, and then asset cost as the accumulated depreciation, and you then have transaction being passed there, but you have a report wrongly, because typically you want to see debit here and credit here. And that's what the system will typically do. But if you have the cost account here, you will see that the value is going down rather than increasing. And likewise, if you have accumulated depreciation here. So if I drop down on this, I would see my leasehold improvement, which I created. The minute I pick it, it's going to populate every other information here. You will see the depreciation method and all that. Now, if I have dimensions I intend to use on this particular asset. So for example, if it's assigned to a particular location, I can pick that location and say this asset is it's assigned to this employee, assigned to this customer, it's assigned to this particular event, or whatever dimensions that you have within your system. So this is a custom field I created earlier. We're going to look at what custom fields do. We don't need like a renewal date for this, so I can take that off. I hope it doesn't give me an error though. But I mean, that's how it would work. So once I'm done with this, I'm going to go ahead and create it. Let's see what happens. And then it will generate an asset ID. I think it should be 34 based on what I saw in that sequence as the next sequence ID. And then you see that my asset is created. Now it's taking me here. See that it's picked up my cost, my salvage value, but it's asking me, it's telling me that it's ready for review. And until I put it in service, depreciation will not be started on this asset. Now, what does the service date mean? The service date simply means when you start using. So you could acquire an asset today and don't start using it until 3 months later. Automatically, that gives you a different acquisition date from in-service date. And then depreciation would typically run from in-service date. An example is, say computers. You could your IT department could purchase computers from time to time, and then they don't assign it to people, they just have it installed. So acquisition date is there. But the minute they assign it to someone to start using, then they can then put it in service and depreciation can start running. Other than that, all this other information is what you see, and it still retains renewal date. Is what you see in terms of what we enter. So it's not generating depreciation yet because I haven't put in service. So what I will do is to go ahead and say I want to place this asset in service. And because I bought it in 2025, my service date cannot be earlier than that. It can be same date or after. So I'll just retain same date and I'll say save. Okay. So now my asset is in service. If you give it a while, it's going to generate depreciation for that 60 months immediately, but it's not going to post any except it gets to that particular date. So from what you can see here already, you can tell that, like I explained, the cost is this, salvage value is this. Automatically, it's going to only calculate depreciation on 19,000 because it's taking cognizance of the salvage value. So if I go to depreciation schedule, let me see if it's generated anything yet. Has it? Let's see. CV. Okay, 21. So you see that it's going to post depreciation monthly at this value because it's straight line for 60 months from January 2025 up until December 2029, and then the asset will be fully depreciated. So with this, it's generated depreciation for January. Remember that at the point of setting up the configuring the asset module will ask you to post depreciation automatically. However, it will not post its depreciation until January 31st. And then once it posts it, it's going to send you an email saying if it was successful or not. But we'll look at how we go ahead to post depreciation on our own. Now, because depreciation takes a little while to process, I'm going to, post depreciation for this asset, and then while it's processing, we'll come back to that, and I'll be running you through on how to generate AP and purchasing transactions that will trigger creation of assets. So to post the depreciation, I would go to this and go to post depreciation. It's going to list all assets that I currently have in service or not in service. And I'll just look for this that was just created, which has, I think it's 34. And then, it brings up all this with those depreciation dates. But I just want to post that of January, even though we're not, we're close to January. Today is the 27th. So once I activate this, you will notice that it all has a status of not posted. Okay. And then I only want to post this. You'll see that it has just one posting item. I'll go ahead and say post depreciation and ask it to post. So the system, will keep processing that. If you come to bulk action runs, you will see it being run. It's queued. It's still in progress. By the time it's successful or failed or whatever, it's going to give you that particular information. So let's go into how you can how an AP bill can trigger creation of an asset. So if I go to my system accounts payable, I want to create a bill, and then I'm going to we do have other functionalities, but I'm going to add, the bill manually. I'm not going to upload. I'm not going to email. That's what we may look at when we come to AP automation. But for purpose of this presentation, I'm going to stick to adding it manually. So I'll just pick any vendor. Let's say I pick CTS Technology. We'll also have this functionality to be able to populate this from previous bills and then make any required changes. If I had the invoice numbers, I would enter the descriptions, necessary information. If I also have, like, for example, the invoice for this, or I have pictures, I can add that. Once I add this, it also becomes part of what you see on that asset within the asset register. And then, all this other information that if you need to change any, you can change. Now, the key thing would be specifying the asset cost account. So in this case, I would say I'm purchasing a computer equipment, and I would say it's coming for top range computer for 4.5. It's not in a location. I'm going to leave events out. Location, I'm still going to use this location, and then I have to specify a name for that asset. Note, not under dimensions, but name of acquired assets. If I wanted to post the transactions for an already existing asset, what I would do would be to pick that particular asset from this drop down. But this is a new computer being acquired. What I need to do is specify the name and say new, let's say it's a new Mac laptop for the CEO, and then once I do this, I've specified a name. It's just a single line bill. Because I have approval set up for this, you will see I have submit here. If not, ordinarily it should have been showing me say post. I also have some kind of budget check set up. I could check if I have budget for this. You know, so the account number requires an event. Okay, so it requires an event. I have to go back and specify. I'll just pick any event here. So I just do this. Okay, and then let me just see. Does it still ask me for something? So it does the budget check. I don't have a budget actual, so I'm overspending. But it won't stop me based on how I've set it up. So I will do a submit this bill, and then it's just telling me that I have to repeat this action because of the budget checkup, and then the bill gets submitted. Okay, but it doesn't hit the system directly, it goes for approval. So I have to see, let me see where it goes, which of the people, yeah, can I do this? So if I, look into that bill, it says partially approved, and I go to my history, I can see that it's currently submitted to K-Grace, and this is K-Grace here. And all I need to do as K-Grace, because I anticipated this, I logged in earlier, is to go to accounts payable, and I want to approve bills. So I would see my bill seated here as 4 5. I can view it, take a look at it, and if it's fine, you'll see that my attachment is still there. The attachment would, typically flow with the transaction up to the end. And then, if fine by me, I would go ahead and prove it and say go ahead. If not, I would, decline and send it back uh, to the originator and say list my queue. So coming back here, if I do a refresh, you will notice that it's moved from K-Grace and it's sitting with Chigozie here. So all I need to also do is come to Chigozie. I mean, this would be different personalities within the organization, and then I believe they will get emails, prompting them of having something sitting in their tray for approval. So I would go in here and I would see that 4 5 here, and then I can also look into it. Let's not bother about that. I'll just go ahead and do an approval. And once I do that, if I come back here, I would see that my bill is now fully approved. And okay, I think the mail just came in for informing me that I do have some information for approval. That's how it would work typically. And then you then go in and approve the system and approve the transaction. So subsequently, if I come to bill, you see that the status has changed to posted. So what it means then is if I go to my asset module, I should see an asset what this value. And let's go and check assets. Okay. And there we are, new Mac laptop for MD 4.5. And if I click on it, you will see that it's already picked up every required information based on the integration, the name, the dimension, the class information, the depreciation method, and the month. And then all it needs me to do is to place it in service or not. And then I'll just go and say, all right, let's place this asset in service. And the asset is ready for depreciation. If I go and look at my depreciation posting and I enter that asset, I think it's FAS 035, right? And then you would see it here. So the minute I click on this and I go to, it's going to list all the position values. If I go to the schedule and I ask it to show me what those are, it's going to list the monthly depreciation for that asset, which means $75 for each. Remember that I did not specify a salvage value for this. So what it's done is split 4,500 into 60 months and then give you that $75 every month. Okay, so let me go ahead and check my bulk action run for this. Okay, so I do have an error message here. I guess it's because I've set up some things and it's telling me that it's missing the program dimension in this account as well as the event dimension in the second. So I'm just going to go to 5660 and turn on those dimensions. Let's see, sorry about that. GL code 5660. And this is just because I use this instance for a lot of things, and I could turn off and turn on and turn off things. So I'll turn this off, and then I'm going to go back to my depreciation, run that again, and go ahead and run you through how vendor invoice will also create an item, and then uh, we'll come back and check this. So it's FAS 034.
And then I would look at this. This is still January. It's not posted, so this is going to post it again. And then we'll come back to check. Once it's successful, I'm also going to get an email. You see this? So this is telling me that I had an error in that particular depreciation. So yeah, so while that is processing, we can go to purchasing. In this case, I'm not going to go through rating the purchasing, purchase requisition, purchase order, and then purchase requisition converting to purchase order, and then doing a goods receipt, and then converting into a vendor invoice. I'm just going to go straight to vendor invoices. And then that can this should work. Trust it. So how do we add? Pick a different vendor this time. Let's see, I pick IWI, that's me. And then in this case, if I have payment terms defined on that vendor, it's fairly sure, but let's start to mandatory information. If I had an attachment, like a picture, I'll add that. And then in this case, I will say, okay, ID. Okay, let's just pick any ID here. Then okay, and then so warehouse and its quantity is one. Let's see, this is another six. Let's see, this is 65K. I think I'm buying a motor vehicle this time around. Okay, so so I'm buying a Jaguar 2025 model, and yeah, okay. Uh, so geo code, okay. Sorry, I'll quickly just create an item here. Uh, okay. All right. So I think I'm going ahead with this. Let's just post this and see what it gives us. Let's see. Oops. I think I missed that one. So go back. Value entity. Sorry about that. 65. Pick a location. A location. I'm going to use same. Okay. I think they should go through now. Okay, spam my email. Okay, so my additional dimensions, I'll just go ahead and specify them. Asset, program, okay, and then post this guy. Okay, just gives me a warning. Okay, what's up? Okay, so I guess I'll do a quick setup here. Go to items. I'm going to create a quick item for asset purchases. It's not inventory. It's not inventory. So it's call it asset purchases. My bad. Sorry about this. Uh, Proceed this. AP, then purchases. So product line ID. Okay. Description. And then your group standard cost, advanced, term, cost reference, I don't know if you want, general ID. I can add one here and call it motor vehicle. motor vehicle, and then look for my geo account, motor vehicle, and then save this. Okay, and then save this. Okay, and I'm done. So I'll go back to my invoice again. I see this works this time. Sorry, oops. I didn't want to give an invoice. Add, then pick vendor, IWI, payment terms, Netary, and then AP is here, right? And then 65,000. And then I'm going to pick location. Okay, so I'll say my Jaguar is 2025 model, and then it's for this location, not that location, for the top location. I'll just specify all this just in case. I don't want it standing me back. And then I would go ahead and post this. Come on, come on. Okay, let's go again. Oops, I can't change from the hell. All right, oh, not bad. Name of assets. Asset classification. I did pick my asset account. Okay. Okay. So I'll get back to this. But typically it would run through the same way and create an asset. I'm sorry. Let's just come to this. I guess I should have tested this earlier. So if I go back to my asset record, let me check if my depreciation computation has been successful or really failed again. Total records error. So what's the error this time again? Not great job, but transaction is based on event, really. 1860. Oh, so sorry, go back to my deal. And then 1860, I'll just disable that item. Oops, 1860. I'll disable events, okay? And then this is what you have when you have a, this is what you get when you have a clear zone for demo. And then, okay, pause the precision again. Go for that same asset, considering I've done this. And, uh, it's 34, right? And then we'll click on this time, pause the precision. It should go through this time. So this, you can experience this. You also see that it gives you information on what the issue is, and then you're able to go back and then resolve that particular issue. So we'll also wait for this to process. Let's just see how it's going. So it's queued again, and apparently, we couldn't look at how vendor invoices would take care of that, but it's the same process. You specify the asset cost account, it will generate the assets and place it, make it available for review, and then you can review and then put it in service. The next thing we'll be looking at is how to bring in assets you already had in existence before the implementation. And I do have this open list of assets where I have different names, serial numbers if necessary, tags in places where you might need it, status, tangible. This is the asset type. If it's depreciation, the quantity, the ID, the cost, the salvage value. I've made it 10% of each, and then I've used in-service date as well as this, and you see that they fall under different asset classes, the journals and all that. So, having prepared this file, I would have worked with you to populate this file, and then what I would do would go to Sage, go to fixed assets, sorry, company, and then go to setup, import data, and then for fixed assets should be here, right? And then fixed assets. So, and then I would import. If there's any update, you would typically download a new template. But I would import this one. We'll see what the import functionality looks like. It's also very nice to use. Would point out errors for you, if any. And then I'm going to add a import file. So this is my file upload, and then I'm going to go to where I have my files, my folder. Sorry, in my projects. Save data fixed asset, and that's my asset upload. And then I'll pick that. So it's populating. Give it a while, and it takes you to the next point, and then kind of maps those fields, loads those information. These are the mappings, and then you can then look through those files. If there's anything you think you need to change. So for example, you see the asset GL ID is mapped to the asset GL account code in the templates. The same for this. Where I do not have any mappings, just leave it there, and then let's say we'll say continue, and then it brings out the value for those files, one value mapped. And then we'll continue, and then it's loading, the assets in here, and running that particular. Okay, so it says it's successful in terms of the load, and then it gives you information on those particular items. I have 9 items here. If there's any item that had issues, you see that it's typically the same for what I had or what I have in my Excel file. So if there's any item that has any issue, you will notice, it will say one as invalid. So for example, if I were to change, let me say, in-service date is mandatory. If I were to take out in-service date for that, I'm sure it's going to generate one as invalid. Okay, didn't. Okay, put that date back. So, validated successfully. Okay, but I mean, let's just put that date 01/01 2023. If not, it would tell you that that asset is invalid, and then if there's any information you need to look at, dimensions, location, can put it in 100. So if I'm comfortable with this, I'll go ahead and do my import, and then give it a few minutes. It will, then run, and when it's complete, the import reported offline, you receive an email results when processing is complete, which is typical. Maybe I should have just used one asset, but let's just let it run through. After this, okay, we've looked at appreciation from time to time. We'll ensure that the posting is done. Oh my God. Okay, so we're in luck. Operation completed successfully. Okay, so I can exit this, and I can save it optionally if I want. I can say exit and save records. And then if I go back to, remember the last asset we created was 35. So if I go back, I should see assets from 36 to maybe 44 plus 35 plus 9, right? So let me see if I even see 36. My code. Sorry, assets. Okay. Okay, so RPS 2036. So you see that HVAC. That's the first item I have here, which is 45K, 45. So if I go back, I can open this up. And then you will see that the acquisition date is what? 2023. And then disposal value is this. It's already in service because remember when we were configuring it, we had a go live date of 2024.
So this automatically, one will specify the in-service date, the upload puts in service. And if you go to the depreciation schedule, you would see that we only have depreciation from 2024 January, because we said, service day. So it's assumed that we've posted depreciation for uh, 2023 for 12 months, which is what you would have here. You see this, you see it, all historically posted. So these ones are the one not posted from January 2024, and then I can then go ahead and say post depreciation, look for that particular asset. Let's see, it's FS 00036, and it shows up, but it will show those not posted. If I switch this to posted, it will show the ones that have been historically posted. Historically posted, yes. But if we were to just post this, not posted, I would pick for January and do the same thing I did for the initial one. So let's see if my depreciation one is complete for that particular item. I hope success. Okay, so this time around it went through. I think I've also gotten an email. It says my depreciation was successful, and it tells me that. So this is also a report that I will get from my uploads. It tells me my upload was done successfully. This was the error I got during my depreciation. So you will also get email updates when this happened, and it also triggers. So if I go to this, I can view this to look at what the posting looks like. This is it. Sorry, not the asset, the journal entry. So you will see that in this case, I've credited the accumulated depreciation and debited the depreciation expense account with this particular value. And by doing this, it will be picked up in my financials, both at the balance sheet level and at the income statement level. So that also puts us through on how depreciation posting works. I've done it manually, but for all assets I have, if I get to January 31st, the system would automatically trigger that posting because we have automatic posting set up. But I can always come back to this bulk run because of the discrepancies I have to look at those that were successful or not. And then if there are issues, I can tell what those issues are and then go ahead and fix them and rerun them. But because we'll be working with you, you hardly have these challenges because we'll have mapped the necessary dimensions to the system, and then you hardly have any of those kind of issues. Sure. So the next thing we'll be looking at is how assets are disposed. So for example, you use an asset, it's that fully depreciated or it's not fully depreciated. But for some reason you want to do away with that asset and then get it off your asset register. What you need to do is to do a disposal, and then you typically would go to your asset records, and let's say we're picking a particular item that has depreciated over a particular time. Let me look at CNA you can find. I think let me still do this because it has some value. So to dispose of this asset, I would, activate, click on it, and then you see that I have the dispose button, and then I'll just, pick that. What is my disposal date? I could say it's the 31st, end of the month. What is the disposal type? If it's a sale, the minute I pick this is going to ask me for a sales price, which is part of what it's going to use to also compute income or loss, gain or loss on disposal. If it's a loss, I can specify that and then I don't need to put an amount. By so doing, it's just going to pass adjustment entries for the cost, accumulated registration and depreciation expense. And then if I have any comment to enter, I would enter. Same for theft and same for others. So I would say because this asset is a new one, we bought it at say 20K, it's just 1 month depreciation, but I'm going to be selling this for 13,500. And then I will say sold off, just typically just end description, and then go ahead and save this. Let me see what it says. Select the disposal date before any.
Okay, it's asking me before any unposted because we already have posted for January. So I'll do this. I'll go to this post period before. Okay, sorry. Uh, Let me take it back to January again. 27. See what it says. Select a disposal date that is after in service date. Okay, in service date is this. Okay, I'll do that. Select it for that last after the last posted period date and before any unposted period. Okay, okay. So I pick this. Could not create your batch. Why couldn't you do that? I'll check on my see GeoFX 700 dimensions. Okay, this is this guy. I'll take off events and program. You go ahead and run that disposal again. On this 34. And then I'll dispose. Let's pick the February 12th because it's after that. It's a sale. I'll say sold off. Else then 500. Let's see what it says this time. Let's see, is it giving me any message? I'm creating that batch. So I'm going to look at my everything here. It's computer. Okay. Okay. Let's see this time around. Okay, so let's see what we get this time. So dispose next month after depreciation. Disposal time is 0. Let's see, it's 35. That's massive loss. It's sold off. And then save this. And then it's passed off. You see the state has changed from disposed. And then if I were to look at other information related to this asset, you see the sales price has been updated. And then if I look at more information on it, uh, disposal journal entries, gain or loss, you'll see that I do have transactions posted in that manner. And then I could look at, you know, it cancelled all this other depreciation, and then let's left this. Does it have any other thing posted here? And then let's see what we have now. Depreciation. That was the third one. So from here, this is the only depreciation. Those are the salvage value. No remaining depreciation because this asset has been disposed. And then when you get to that asset, you will see that it has a status of disposed on it. And then if I
go back to my assets. I can run my assets by, I think I can also run by states. States, okay, in service. So if I wanted to see only disposed assets, I have just one. I can always look at that, particular assets, and then see maybe additional information, if any, related to that asset. So that brings this as particular asset to the end of its, its end of its life. Now, the last item we'll be looking at is creating custom fields, but I would also show you a little bit about reporting using custom report writer. I did, create a number of fields. I'm not going to build the report from scratch. So if I wanted to create a custom field, say I wanted to be able to capture some kind of information, I would, go to my customization services, or what you would see as custom services in certain areas, and I want to create a field. Then, go ahead to add a new field. In this case, it's going to be related to fixed assets. Fixed assets. Okay, assets, and then what's next? I would go ahead and, what kind of information do I want it to be? Is it a checkbox, is it currency, text area, something that gives you multiple, select. In this case, maybe I want the contact number for the repair guy or for that asset, and then I'll put that there, and then I'll call this contact email, and then picks the field automatically, then go to next. I could make it a mandatory field, hidden or inactive, and then I will just going to leave this field blank, so that it appears same place as. I'll see where it appears. I can always, come and change it. So if I go to my fixed assets now, I can see if I want to create a new asset, for example. Okay, so if I say create, you would then see contact email. So it's called in here. I can then enter what that contact email is. And because I've picked email, if I enter any information that's not an email, not an email format here, I would, typically get an error message. Let's see if, how that would work here. For example, if I came to this guy and I'll probably edit it. And in terms of email, let me see if it will take anything not in an email format. And I say at IWI group CA, and I want to see. Okay, I think it's. Will it take it? It should. If it does. Okay, so I think it's not a valid format, but the minute I change this at to at, and then I save it, it should pick it up. See, asset save. So that's it. It's taking us from, credit to grade from an asset, introducing you to say fixed asset, running through the various functionalities. In terms of reporting, I did have some kind of custom reports I designed initially, like custom reports. I do have some fixed assets. So for example, fixed asset by location, fixed asset by fixed asset register report. Not, totally fine in terms of formatting, but I mean, it can just show, like the basic information that you require. In this case, I want to see details and I want to view that report. And then it kind of breaks it down, I can do better really. It's just this is just on a quick mock-up. Okay, the other reports there as well. For example, fixed assets, network value. Okay, okay, asset register report by class. Let's look at this. And then I wanted to show details. I want to show landscape, and then do a view. Okay, so this is just broken down by class. Then what about the summary? Assess summary by class. We'll run this report and then, okay, view this, and then we can customize further to produce it in a manner that you would, really appreciate it. So on that note, I would, want to say thank you, and if you really need us to help you on this, you can check us out at IWI Consulting, iwigroup.ca, and reach out to us, and we'll be glad to be of service. Thank you so much. You'll see further videos on this. We'll be looking at expense management soon. I'll also be looking at financial report writing, using the financial report writing tool within Sage Intacct. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.